Mike Dannemiller. You're there, Mike. No. Okay. We just have Deb, no last name.
Hi, I'm Deb Kagan. I'm the executive director of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition.
Great to have you, Debbie. Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Goldstein. I'm an environmental planner and trail planner with DVRPC. Happy to be here.
Yeah, great. John Antonelli.
Good morning. My name is John. I am the CEO of the Cumberland Cape Atlantic YMCA. That's in Vineland.
Great to have you. Yelena Lasko.
Good morning, Yelena Lasko. I work for the NJDOT. I'm a rep here on behalf of Statewide Planning. I'm also a Transit Village coordinator.
Oh, great to meet you, Yelena. Thanks. Mauricia Chiarelli. Sorry about that.
Hi, no problem. Mauricia Chiarelli. I'm with the Salem County Office on Aging and Disabilities, Scoot Transportation Division.
Okay, then I have Victoria Maurizio.
Hi, good morning. I'm Victoria Maurizio. I am the Executive Director of the Salem County Office on Aging and Disabilities. And as Mauricia said, we have Scoot Transportation.
Great, thank you. Pat Farley.
I'm Patrick Farley. I'm the Executive Director at Cross County Connection TMA with the Transportation Management Association for South Jersey. Apologies for my terrible office lighting. I am not trying to go into hiding.
Not yet. Sheila Baker.
Yes. Oops. Good morning. I'm Sheila Baker Gujral, and I am the Resource Center Director at ANJEC, or the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions.
Oh, great. Great to have you all. I hope I didn't miss anybody. I think Mike Dannemiller, did you, anybody else?
Hi, sorry. This is Barbara Nedahan. I was on a call that I couldn't get off of, so sorry about that. I'm the Executive Director of the Cumberland County Office on Aging and Disability in Cumberland here.
Oh, great. Thanks.
And
Let's see. Upendra.
I'll pop in there as well. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Stephanie Robinson.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Upendra Sapkota. I'm a New Jersey Project Director with the Rails to Trails Conservancy.
Great. And then Tanisha.
Good morning. My name is Tanisha Malcolm Wint, founder and executive director of Outdoors on Purpose.
All right, great. Tiffany Robinson keeps jumping in and out there. Hi, Tiffany.
Yes, good morning. This is Tiffany with the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition. I am the Trails Network Manager there. Good morning, everyone.
Great to have you. And then I'll give Mike Dannemiller one more chance unless he's got a communication problem there.
He's unmuted. You
unmuted,
can see that he's trying. Yeah, Mike, we can't hear you.
Mike is not shy. I know that if we could hear
Mike,
him,
I don't know if you want to disconnect and try again, because I can see that you're unmuting yourself. Yeah, he just left, so he'll come back to us.
So great. A lot of I don't want to say old friends, longtime friends and new friends. So thanks everybody for joining us. And why don't we jump into the next slide, please. So purpose and goals. These are really stipulated in the original solicitation, and these are the kind of things that SJTPO is looking to accomplish through the development of this plan. So we want to address critical gaps in the regional active transportation network. If you've visited, lived, or worked in the region, you know that there are some really great facilities, but like in a lot of places in New Jersey, they're sort of isolated from one another. So we want to fill in those gaps and overall just connect people between where they live, where they need to go, and where they want to go. Through that, we'll promote accessibility and mobility for the movement of people and goods, not just vehicles. A lot of that activity supports the regional economy, tourism, etc. A lot of people come to South Jersey, for vacations, and we want to make sure that they have their other options than just driving. We will also seek to increase and enhance opportunities for travel and tourism, improve overall transportation safety. We know that vulnerable road users, people that use active transportation network, walkers, bicycles, disabled transit riders definitely experience a disproportionate safety impact, especially a disproportionate crash severity impact of serious injuries and fatalities. And every time we look at the numbers, cyclists, pedestrians, disabled communities certainly are much greater, much more greatly impacted by safety issues. And then overall, we'll create a framework for a unified bicycle pedestrian count program. What we're going to do is identify some key locations in the region where we can get some good bicycle and pedestrian count data to help support planning activities. And then we'll build upon opportunities identified in other recent transportation plans. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And all of those things help to advance and support the goals of the Regional Transportation Plan for SJTPO Forward 2050. Next slide, please. So about the region, you know, a number of us have been working in the region for quite a while. SJTPO region is very large, but it's also very different from the rest of the state. The population density is much lower. The mix of you know, ethnicities and demographics is different. It's much more automobile reliant, and it also has a much, I would call, much less developed network of state highways, enforcing a lot of traffic that would be regional in nature onto county-owned and local roadways. So it creates a lot of traffic disproportionate impacts and safety impacts, and a lot of the roads that people would bike on are forced to, you know, to carry travel and traffic that may be, you know, not compatible with their local communities, and that's a big part of what we're trying to look at and accomplish through this plan. It's about 600,000 residents overall. The population density about 360 is, you know, less than a third of the statewide population density. So it's actually much closer when you look at the numbers to Delaware and other areas. About 15% speak Spanish. The median age is 42. It's similar. Statewide average is 40.4, so a little bit older. And part of that is if you look at the demographic data, especially for many of the shore communities, they have a much higher percentage of population over 55 and 65. And the median household income is lower. It's sort of reflective of the type of industries and the type of jobs that are available and that are strong in this region. So next slide, please. So, you know, overall, you know, we have a really good group here. Obviously, you identify some really important stakeholders and community groups, people that often don't have a voice in the planning process. And so we're really excited to have you all participate and help us reach the most vulnerable populations. We heard quite a few people from different organizations, disabled, etc. So we want to make sure that everybody's travel needs are accounted for through this plan. We hope you'll be an advocate for this study. There'll be a lot of materials, a lot of meetings, and you guys can help us bring people into the process and also help us identify locations and groups that we can meet with and have one-on-one discussions and really get a better understanding of what people's needs and concerns are. We don't want to just talk to people, really focus on listening, and that's why we often go directly to people instead of just having, you know, big PowerPoint presentations that are not in person. You can provide input to us on all the data, the folks that you work with, what their needs are, and you can give us feedback on the draft plan and implementation matrix as we go through that. And then we'll have at least 2 more subsequent meetings with you guys as well. Next slide, please. So the overall schedule is finishing up in just over a year, fall of 2026. Right now we're doing our, you know, technical assessment, looking at our data, reviewing all the existing plans, the crash data, creating our base mapping, figuring out what kind of facilities the region has right now, and that'll help us identify the gaps and the opportunities for future facilities. Public and stakeholder outreach is something that takes place throughout the study, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about that. Annie's going to mention some of the meetings that we think we might want to participate in, and we're hoping to get a little feedback from you folks as well to help us set goals and objectives for the study and prioritize things, but also opportunities, activities, meetings that we can attend, and people that you think we need to talk to make sure we have the best understanding of the needs in the region. In the spring, we'll start developing our findings and recommendations. We're going to take our existing network, look what's been recommended in various other studies, see how that looks, figure out where the gaps are in the active transportation network, what kind of opportunities there exist, and then we'll get feedback on our recommendation. Over the summer, we'll have a draft and final plan with an implementation matrix and some mapping for everyone to take a look at. And then we'll also be developing a draft bicycle and pedestrian count program based on where we think demand is greatest. And then that we'll also have a technical assistance and grant application. So what we're going to do is identify and create a template grant application. I believe we're going to put one grant application together working with SJTPO. So that's a schedule about another 14 months out. So there's a lot to do in a short time, but I think the timing is good as well. Next slide, please. Annie, I think, or Jenny, you were going to take over here and do the goal setting exercise. You want to jump in?
Yeah, Annie and I will take it from here. So now that we've had a little bit of an overview of this process, we wanted you all to help us or participate in a quick goal setting exercise just to kind of understand your role in this and how you can help throughout the planning process and sort of what the ultimate vision will be for this plan. So we're going to try using Mentimeter. You can access it with your phone via the QR code on the screen, or I don't know if Annie, you can maybe drop a link in the chat, and then you'll have to enter the code that's on the screen too. So everybody can just take a few minutes to join in and let us know if you're having any trouble accessing it.
And I can say I was able to get in, so hopefully everybody else is too.
Thanks, Annie. So there's the link in the chat there too if you don't want to join or aren't able to on your phone.
Hi, folks. Mike Miller on a device with a microphone. Are we able to see responses real time?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll do that in a minute, Mike. Good to hear from you, Mike. Thanks for. Glad you were able to get in. Yeah, we want to go in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Jenny, okay if I go on to the first question?
Yeah. Looks like people are able to get in, so let's get started. All right, so the first question is, can you safely and efficiently get to where you need to go in Atlantic, Cape May, Cumberland, and Salem counties? And as your responses come in, we'll be able to see them live on the screen here. Right, it's looking like most of the time you're able to get where you need to go. And I think with this question, we're sort of getting to one of the points that Pete made earlier about the purposes of this plan and kind of addressing some of the gaps in the regional transportation network. Great. All right, so it's looking like most of the time you can get where you need to go. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. If anybody wants to come off mute and elaborate on their responses, feel free to do so.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I was still trying to log in. I couldn't get in.
Okay.
I'm a minister. I do some work in Cape May County, Whitesboro, and I'm gonna put almost never There are some really serious issues with the way the streets are designed and where things have been blocked off. Where coming down Route 9, it's a one way in, one way out, and whenever there's any sort of emergency or a road closings, folks are stuck. There've been several issues where someone had to get to the hospital because they were having a seizure and they couldn't make it, and so I'd want to elevate that. But I don't know if we're going to go on to be more descriptive. So
no, that's a really good comment. Can you tell us what community that is?
this is Whitesboro, Cape May County within Middle Township.
Okay, great. Thank you. And that's the kind of thing that we often that doesn't show up in the numbers. So it's really important that we do get input like that. So thank you.
So Pete, this is Mike Dannemiller again.
Yeah, Mike.
I'm able to get where I need to go, but I resort to taking a motor vehicle reluctantly. I prefer to have other choices that I felt were family friendly for getting where we need to go.
Is it safety, access? What do you think are the kind of issues that influence you
I
there?
think limited accommodation of dedicated walking or biking facilities forces us to use a car when we're going, especially access transit or other destinations within the area.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Mike. All right.
Right. I think we can move on to the next question. Thanks everyone for your input on this one. Okay, so started talking about this a little bit, but what would make your travel better? So we just heard maybe it's having, different modes of transit that are more accessible. But what else would make travel better for everybody in the region?
And this is a fill in the blank, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Right, so we're seeing some of the responses: more access to public transportation, shared use paths for major destinations, better connections, more complete connections, sidewalks and curbs, greater connectivity across county and municipal lines. Safety barriers for bike paths. More complete routes. So we're seeing some themes around better safety, better connectivity, maybe access to different kinds of modes. Bus stops with ADA accessibility. Okay. Someone who relocated from Florida. It's good to see, what worked well in other communities and maybe what would work well here too.
Yeah, anybody want to jump in, raise your hand, or just jump in and that'd be great too.
So similarly in Whitesboro, what the community's been wondering about is, since so much of their infrastructure is fixed and what they needed for it to be completely transformed, what exactly does that look like for them and what role can they play? Because they're not contractors and clearly can just pick up a road and move it somewhere else. So it's just so much deferred maintenance and just really just not being a priority at all. And so that's what'll make travel better for them.
That's a good one. One of the things that we could do is there's a thing called a demonstration project. So if there's like a simple improvement that could be tested in your community, we could do that and to see if those, simple quick fix design has some merit. It might be able to move into the, into design and construction. Just elevating these things to SJTPO as a concern is, I think, is important. You're right. Transit, for example, rail is fixed, bus has a little bit of flexibility. So maybe redesigning some bus routes. Mike, you're with Transit now. Maybe we could talk about that. And then just having sidewalks and good crosswalks and lighting. A lot of communities have on sidewalks. A lot of the lighting is for the cars. It's not for the pedestrians. And a lot of the crash severity reports that we see are at night. Without the good sidewalks, the good lighting, good crosswalks, and very clear right of way for pedestrians and cyclists, that's where a lot of safety risks come as well. So, we can't, like you said, we can't pick up and move a road, but there are some things. There are quite a few simple things that we can test and design into the roads to make them safer for everybody and restore the balance a little bit. Right now, where a lot of our roads are designed for movement of traffic at higher speeds, heavy trucks, and there are design interventions that we can recommend, to make some changes and restore the balance a little bit.
All on board.
Yeah, thanks again. That's really good comments. That's again, it's the stuff that doesn't show up in the numbers. It's really one of the really good reasons why we like to do these kind of meetings. All right, how about next question?
All right, so this last one is going to create a little bit of a word cloud for us once your responses come in. So we'd like you to share what your vision is for how active transportation like walking, biking, and transit should evolve in the region.
Jenny, just these are answers from the group. I guess they had access to the question before I switched slides.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Looks like accessibility is a big one here. But I'm also seeing safety again, regional connectivity, connections network, connecting to resources, but also connecting communities. Reliable, safe, inclusive, and equitable.
Yeah, I see separation from traffic up there on the top. That's a lot of people, when we do our surveys, do indicate that, similar to what Mike Vandermiller had mentioned, just because there's, a bike lane, a lot doesn't mean people not necessarily feel safe if you're right directly next to high speed, high volume moving traffic. So affordability is good. Yep. Inclusive. Yeah, these are all great. And we'll, as we put together our candidate network, what we're going to do is evaluate it against, the vision and goal setting that we come up with, and projects that meet a greater number of goals or more applicable goals are probably going to move up in the prioritization as well. So we'll look at recommending projects, we'll look at the cost, the difficulty of those and what we get out of them, and also how well they meet the goals and the visions that are articulated in meeting with you and the other stakeholders. Yeah, this is great. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, and I think, these words and themes that are coming up throughout the visioning process will be relevant to as we conduct our outreach, which I'm going to talk about in the next few slides, but wanting to keep these ideas in mind as we go through the planning process.
Yep.
Great, so why don't we move on to the next slide? And I can give you a little bit of an overview of the public outreach plan, which is what POP is. So that's something that we've put together as part of the planning process. And I think a draft will be shared with this group as well, because we really do want your input on how we start to begin to engage the public. So the main modes that we're looking at using for public engagement are both in person and online. So we've been developing a public survey that will sort of help us reach people who maybe can't join in-person events or, you know, aren't able to. And then also targeting listservs and social media posts online, using the SJTPO website and the county website, and then really looking to this group as well to tap into your networks and recognizing that, you know, you serve communities who maybe wouldn't normally participate or see themselves involved in a plan like this, but we really want to make sure that we're getting the input from everybody who is within the region and would be depending on the transportation systems. So part of our work here throughout the planning process, and I think Roseanne will talk about this a little bit more, and Pete as well, is identifying the communities within the region that have underserved populations and really trying to tailor our outreach accordingly. So as I mentioned, we put together a draft outreach plan, but obviously with your input, we'd really like to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to reach the people who maybe wouldn't normally participate in this sort of plan. So we can go to the next slide. So this is, I see there's a question. Let me just get through this slide, Tanisha, and then we can take your question. An overview of generally the structure of the plan and our strategy for conducting outreach. So 3 main tiers of awareness and learning, solicit feedback, and collaboration. So the first phase, which will be this fall through the spring, will include the public survey and 3 targeted outreach sessions. And the idea for these outreach events are to generally raise awareness of the plan development. So just getting the word out there that this is even a thing that's happening in the region, discussing how to be involved in the planning process. So, you know, giving an overview of what it takes to develop a plan and kind of letting the public know how they can be involved in that. And then learning about the issues and the challenges facing the plan area today and in the future. And that one is where we'll be learning from the public of similar have you guys shared during the goal setting exercise, like what issues there are in the region, what you would like to see changed. And some of those questions will be addressed through the public survey as well. So these targeted outreach sessions, we've done some preliminary research around some existing events that are happening throughout the region that we could maybe, you know, show up at and join in on and kind of get people's input there. But obviously suggestions are welcome, and we'll talk about that a little bit on the next slide. The next piece of the outreach is soliciting feedback. So this will be later on in the process in the spring of next year, where we will present and solicit comments and feedback on the proposed plan and the regional active transportation network via an in-person mapping exercise. And we're targeting the New Jersey Bike and Walk Summit to have this goal setting or this mapping exercise at. And then the final piece of this is collaborate. So this would be towards the end of the process next year, where we would share the draft study with the public through a public meeting and collaborate on the final recommended network. So really through each of these pieces here, we're looking to gather insight into the user experiences and the preferences and the challenges, and help identify some of the critical gaps and opportunities in the transportation network. And, you know, like I mentioned, we have some ideas of where we might want to do these outreach sessions, but the dates and the times could be determined in consultation with you all based on the populations that you work with and how you think we might best meet them where they are. And then I'll quickly mention too that the public survey, we have a draft ready, planning to launch that sometime in the fall to overlap with the first outreach session and closing it sometime early next year, probably aligning with the second or third outreach session. So Tanisha, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a few clarifying questions. One, I think on the last slide, it noted that the survey would be available in Spanish, and I'm wondering if there are other languages that need to be taken into consideration in order to saturate, this concept of making sure that we are engaging all people who are not generally asked. So I don't know what the population in totality is of folks that maybe are of Haitian Creole or other languages to take into consideration. And then if you could just go back to the next slide after this one that you just showed. Yes. So same for public engagement. Are there opportunities or resources available to provide on-site translators that are able to assist as a part of the process? And then the last piece is different modes of data collection. So I know in the beginning of this, you all noted differently abled. I do not know if there are accommodations for folks, particularly who may be visually impaired as a part of this process.
Yeah, that's all helpful. I don't know if Pete or Jennifer maybe could speak to the translation. I know there is guidance from the state level about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Pete.
Go ahead. Well, why don't you go first? Then I think Roseanne might be able to help with that also.
Yeah. So we SJTPO has a language LEP plan language. The name is completely
Limited
escaping, but
English
it's
proficiency.
Thank you. Like my brain was not working quite well. And in that, we do look at the demographics of the region. And when we look at the SJTPO region as a whole, Spanish is the secondary language. And that's why we usually translate things exclusively in Spanish. Like our major documents, we have an executive summary. So we always write it in English and then translate it into Spanish. There are different sections of municipalities, particularly Atlantic City, that have other languages that kind of pop. So if we were doing outreach in a specific area, Tanisha, if you are aware that there's a group of residents in the area that we want to specifically target and that specifically is needed, we'd be happy to do that. We have an on-call consultant. We don't usually make that available unless it's asked, but that is something that we can do. Same thing with visually impaired. If we know that there are people that we're specifically trying to target, or we know that ahead of time, we can make that available as well.
Great, thank you for that.
And then Tanisha Roseanne Lubeck's going to join us quickly. She has a couple slides later on, but she's going to give you an overview of the English or the language issue.
Thank you.
Answer that if
it looks like you're muted, Roseanne.
I shouldn't be muted.
Oh,
you're not muted,
you're
just really quiet. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me try to get maybe a little bit closer. So what I can say is in the 4 counties, Spanish is the only language that has more than a 1% in Salem, Cumberland, and Cape May. When we're looking at Atlantic County, there are a couple of Asian languages that are over 1%. The highest is Vietnamese at 1.3. French and Haitian Creole don't show up in any of the communities. But again, if it's something where you know that there is a population that is maybe not accounted for in the census, that's information that we can use to try to leverage Jen's contract with interpreters. I also have a native Vietnamese speaker on staff. So if we're in a situation where I think that we're going to be encountering that population, I plan to bring her.
And I think you also mentioned, Tanisha, visually impaired. Oh, Tiffany, I'll get to you in a second. We do, when we have the public meetings, we do recordings. The survey, I'm not sure if there's maybe there's an add-on to the survey that does
look into that.
audio for that, we can look into that. So that's not a question that we usually get, but that's a really good one. And then Tiffany, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say for just kind of rounding it all together. Yes, it sounds like there's an opportunity um, in what you're doing as plan development to make sure that you are reaching into the pockets of the folks that you don't normally hear from, like Alorm, who has mentioned some things that you don't normally hear. So there's an opportunity here to use this to plan for that. So to now, instead of waiting to maybe see if there are some community groups within these areas that may be able to speak to what type of populations that there are. But yes, I think it is a little bit more than just the language. It is about are there opportunities to reach out to people who are diverse in so many ways? And even like, do you not normally hear from youth or do you not normally hear from women? So as you're crafting your outreach plan, to just be thinking about some of those things. And I think that will really help you get the information that you're looking for.
Okay. And, as we're talking, if anybody knows of a group that we should reach out to or a meeting we should attend, put it in the chat and we'll see what we can do. As we're doing this, so you'll see that there's also an AI minutes for the meeting, and I think there's an audio component to that as well. Pat Farley from Cross County Connection, did you want to offer anything about additional outreach to underserved communities?
Ooh, I mean, I think.
And maybe explain what your group is too, because
Okay.
maybe not everybody knows.
Sure. So as a Transportation Management Association, we receive state and federal grants to assist employers, schools, local governments with encouraging initiatives to get people to stop using single occupancy vehicles. And a big part of that is our bicycle pedestrian safety programming and also our Safe Routes to School programming, where we go in and teach kids how to walk and bike safely, but we also do something that's called travel plans, where we do focused bicycle pedestrian plans around schools. I think there's probably opportunity through our Safe Routes to School program to have us kind of connect you with schools and possibly have inroads to connect with the parents. We do a lot of parent surveying and mapping sessions as part of our travel plans. So we have some established partners down there who are familiar with the issues of bicycle pedestrian planning and maybe willing to help out.
Great, thanks, Pat. So, one thing that our experience in doing these types of studies, biking, active transportation, is that the people that work in service economy, people that work in tourism industry and farming communities as well, are often the people that have to walk, bike, and warehousing also walk, bike, and take transit to work. So those are really the folks that are most impacted by this issue. So and again, if there's anybody that you think we should talk to or we could benefit from hearing from, that would be great. And as Jennifer said, they do have some translation capabilities at SJTPO. My mouth's not working quite well today. Let us know. That's why this has actually been a really good discussion. Often we don't get this kind of feedback. So I'll give you an example. We're doing a similar study in Hunterdon County, and the TMA up there has a really good connection to this Hispanic community, and they're sort of serving as a conduit for us to meet with folks who may feel like they're underground or not visible, not listened to. So you guys can also serve as a conduit for us to get the feedback. All we need to do is get the feedback, and we'll see what we can do with it. So Deb, I think you got your hand up. Deb Kagan.
Yeah,
There
I was
you go.
I was just gonna add a suggestion around that. For the outreach we did for the Essex Hudson Greenway, we actually had a lot of success with faith-based organizations actually going to churches, particularly churches that gave services in Spanish language,
Yeah.
to reach out. And there's often an environmental group at a church that you can reach out to. And that was actually very successful, reaching people who had not been involved in these processes before. So
great.
I would recommend trying
Deb,
that.
thanks for that recommendation. Can I ask a follow-up question to that? So if my understanding is correct, that was probably a little bit more focused in one area. How does that work in the SJTPO region in totality? I'm not suggesting we can't do it. I'm just trying to understand what that looks like in the 4-county region.
I don't have enough of the data on that, so you'd have to look into that.
Okay.
But there were two kind of conduits to that. One was there's press that's Spanish language based.
I don't know that in the SJTPO region. We're very disadvantaged here, but also lack the services to get to the groups that you're talking about. So that's exactly why we're having these conversations. Because Tiffany talked about, like, do we normally not hear from a specific group? We don't usually hear from a whole lot of people. So anyone that we're going to hear from here is going to be super fantastic. So I think that's why we were trying to make a diverse project working group, so we can hear the ideas and get that outreach to the appropriate people based upon conversations we're having today and in the future.
Yeah. I mean, you can do some basic data. Where do people live, and where are the houses of worship around there, and you could reach out to people and see. I don't have that information, but I'd be happy to talk to the people who we have worked with and see if they have connections for you.
Thank you.
And to build on what Deb just said, Pleasantville, the bus depot, there is just a cohort of people in and around there. If you really want people who are transit reliant, that might be a target-rich environment to reach out to.
Okay, that's great, Mike. Thanks. Why don't we jump back in? You want to get back in?
Yeah, we can go to the next slide. So on the last slide, we mentioned doing 3 targeted outreach sessions. So in our initial research a few months ago, putting together the beginnings of the outreach plan, these were some of the community events that we identified as opportunities to maybe meet people out in the public. Obviously that first one is this weekend, so probably off the table at the moment, but similar types of events are what we're looking for. So an Italian festival, maybe isn't the first place that you would think about transportation, but if there's a large amount of people in the community that are gathering somewhere at an event that's important to them, I think that's a great chance to sort of talk to them about this plan. Similarly, Lighthouse Challenge of New Jersey coming up in October, a jazz festival, a planning advisory meeting. So those sorts of events. Obviously would love the input from this group. If you know of any major events in the communities, Deb mentioned houses of worship, like those sorts of things. Sometime this fall, I think anything between, the next few weeks and maybe like mid-January would be great. These would be opportunities for us to talk to people on the ground. And another thing to mention is all of these events that are listed on the slide right now are in Atlantic and Cape May counties. So we really are looking for opportunities to get out into the other parts of the region as well. So looking especially at Cumberland and Salem, if you have any suggestions for events that you know of that we could go out and talk about the plan. And then also, as we've been discussing, sort of tailoring the events based on some of the underserved communities. So I know we're going to be talking about the ALICE results in the next few slides that Roseanne has been working on, but this is sort of where we're at right now. If you have any suggestions off the top of your head right now, that's great. But otherwise, you can think about this and send us some suggestions later.
And actually, based on what discussion we just had, these are obviously not events that are probably going to reach the disadvantaged communities that a number of people mentioned. So maybe, Mike, your idea of doing something, a pop-up at the bus depot might work. It's sometimes, we always think going to a train station or a bus SJTPO is great, but sometimes, oh, maybe you could work with us on that. People are in a rush to get to where they're going. So those, but I think that's maybe
They're
what
only
we
in a
could do
rush
is
once that bus pulls up. Other than
maybe,
that, people are hanging out.
so maybe we could work with you on that. Maybe we could substitute in like that event, and then maybe something, with one of the faith-based groups, with one of the churches or something. Or I think what Annie is getting at is here that we have a few ideas. We haven't gotten a lot of additional stuff, and I see people are typing things in. So use Mike's example of, hey, this is a thing that we could do, or folks we could reach. So anybody wants to jump in, or if you want to type something in. So it's critical that in the beginning of the study, we get those needs, those gaps, those inability for people to feel safe to travel from where they live to where they need to go. And then we can use that to figure out what the gaps are, how we can fill them, and how we can evaluate and prioritize them. So it's really critical that we have, and I think, Annie, we were going for 3 activities right now, right? Anybody want to jump in, or I see quite a few things coming up in the chat as well.
I'm just going to read one out loud. Pat, does Cross County Connections have walk, bike, and roll to school month events coming up?
Yeah, we got plenty. I can take a look at the list and send you any that are specific to the SJTPO region.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good
The other
good
access
idea.
we would have to the communities that you're probably trying to reach are through our shuttles. Mike mentioned Pleasantville. There's going to be one new shuttle that's going through there. And then we have shuttles in the Hamilton area between Hamilton and Buena Vista. I put in a location there. That's a pretty good place to reach out to people. And then there's another one that operates in Egg Harbor Township. Don't have a strong community partner there, but we can always share information on surveys or anything like that on our shuttles as well.
Yeah, I see the last comment from Tiffany about placing flyers in those shuttles. I think that's a great idea. That's certainly something I think we could put together, maybe include like a QR code link to the survey too.
Exactly.
Maybe link to the website where there might be more information available.
Yep, that's how we usually handle our surveys, is QR codes. We also do onboard surveying. We find there's better response rates if you actually have people on the buses coaching people through a short survey. I don't know if that fits within your budget, but that's also something that maybe is an idea, or maybe something we could help you out with.
Well, we could create a graphic with a QR code, print those up pretty cheaply, and give those to you. So, yeah, that's great. And again, this is why we invited folks to participate today, because you have the stakeholders, the issues, how to reach them. Anybody else want to jump in? So what I'm going to suggest here, Jennifer, maybe we'll have a call with you and John either this afternoon or tomorrow, pick out like say 4 or 5 candidate things based on what we heard and what we've already got up here, and maybe commit to a few things. Some of these events you have to kind of register with the sponsors in advance, but maybe you guys could help us out with that. So Jennifer, does that sound good? I think it sounds like it's pretty urgent to get out there pretty soon. There's a lot of events coming up.
Yeah, we can follow up after.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Any other hands up that we missed, or?
Yeah, Deb's got her hand up.
Oh, okay. Please.
Yeah, I put in, there's a bike tour through Cape May County. I put the link into chat. Although they may bring in riders from outside of the county, a lot of times the groups that are organized these have relationships with businesses, like they do brewing tours, and have those businesses usually want to support active transportation. So that might be another outlet for you. I put the link for that, for the one coming up in October in the chat.
Okay. You know, and again, using the 100 an example, we did do that. We printed up some flyers and drove all around the county and also reached out to bike clubs and bike shops and other groups that were interested in, you know, in biking and walking. So that's another way we can do that. And just so you know, the survey, as soon as we confirm with SJTPO, we can open that. We generally do at least 6 weeks, and I know we're going to talk about this soon, but we can keep it open based on the responses. So just so you know that that's ready to go, and we can kind of coordinate with these other activities. Any other hands up?
Just to reiterate what I put in chat, I don't know where you are with budgets and timing and all that, and I know this can be complicated, but if you can get county college students to hand out those postcards on shuttles or buses or other events, student labor is pretty inexpensive, and they can, like, it helps encourage that handoff postcard, like, would you please take this survey, does a lot to get better and more results. It's that personal engagement that sometimes helps between postcards at a table and somebody actually taking the time to answer it.
Great. Right.
So
Nice.
just a thought. I don't know if the timing will work out, but we do this a lot.
Okay. Well, definitely. Well, Leanne, why don't you
Yeah.
introduce yourself? I think you came
Hi.
in late, so
Yeah, and I'm
everybody
sorry for
knows
being
you
late today. I
and
got
how
a
you can help us.
another last minute call that kept me from being on time. Leanne Von Hagen, I'm the executive director at the Voorhees Transportation Center, which is at the Blaustein School at Rutgers University. So thanks for inviting me. I appreciate being here.
Great. Glad to
So,
have you
yeah,
aboard, and hopefully we can leverage some of your student expertise. And
yeah, I mean, we do a lot of work with New Jersey Transit to get bus study and other kind of projects like that done, so we can get those survey results. And I don't know if Mike Viscardi is on, but Mike Dennemiller might know more about that too. So, you know, it's a tactic that can work. And we just sort of employ a whole host of students that we can send out early mornings, late evenings, and get them to certain locations so that we can make sure we really target certain areas with that sort of extra effort of getting those surveys answered.
Mike, did you want to jump in? No. Okay. Back to you, Annie. I think we got some really good feedback here, and I think we got some great ideas. But obviously, if anybody thinks about anything else in the meantime, just let us know or reach out to SJTPO.
Okay, great. So I think actually the next slide is passing it over to Roseanne.
All right, I've been furiously taking notes. Let me grab my what I'm going to be saying. So ALICE assessment. One of the tasks that we were charged with as a part of this project was to do an ALICE assessment of the SJTPO region. How many of you have heard of ALICE before? If you want to just drop a thumbs up in the chat or hold a thumbs up, however you would want to do that with the reaction. So a few people have heard of it before. So ALICE stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. So what this is talking about is there are many households who earn above the federal poverty level but fall into this ALICE category. So these are individuals or families who earn too much to qualify for public assistance but are still struggling to afford the basics. This is usually because of strain as wage increases are moving more slowly than the rising cost of goods. So the ALICE income status tool helps to kind of illustrate the challenge. So it adds up essential expenses like housing, childcare, food, transportation, all of those things, and includes a contingency fund, and then compares this household survival budget cost to the actual income in communities geographically, adjusting for location and the composition of households and families. So from there, you can determine whether a household falls below the poverty level or is considered ALICE or is above the ALICE threshold. Can you move to the next slide for me? So here you'll see a sample minimum budget for an ALICE household in the 4 counties that comprise SJTPO's region. So this is aggregate of the 4 counties. So the data is broken down by the 8 factors included in the ALICE budget, which you see on the left. The monthly budget for a 2-adult household with 2 school-aged children totals to about over $7,200, with the highest expenses are housing and food. This is well beyond the federal poverty level for a 4-person household, which is $32,000 a year. The annual total for the ALICE threshold in South Jersey is $87,000. And if you remember, our median income is $72,000 in the South Jersey or the SJTPO region. Can you hit next for me? So this is adjusted to be 1 senior living alone. So this is our second example. So you can see that the childcare expenses are removed, food and housing are adjusted, but it's still a marked difference from the federal poverty level that is just $15,650 for a single occupancy household. So based on this, we're able to find the households that are below the threshold by county and municipality, which is the smallest level that this data can be divided. If you want to go to the next slide for me. You can see that we have above state average for households in all counties of South Jersey. So we've got Cumberland County with the highest ALICE level and the highest poverty level, but Atlantic County is also pretty high as well. The highest concentrations, there are 17 municipalities where over 50% of residents are above the ALICE threshold, and that includes people who are also below the federal poverty line. And 3 communities are actually over 70% ALICE households. That's the city of Salem, Atlantic City, and Bridgeton. If you can go to the next slide. So, of course, ALICE and households in poverty are only one aspect of how we identify these populations that are harder to reach or would need additional support. So in addition to the ALICE data, we looked at a number of other factors that would affect how an individual relates to their community and how they would interact with engagement activities, aligning them with other recent SJTPO plans so that we'd have a better view of the community's residents before we go out into those areas. Now, to kind of tie this back to what we were talking about before, if we put out the survey and we know we're missing communities with female head households, or we're missing people who speak Spanish, or we're missing certain ages or something, we can look at the assessment that we've done of the communities to see, okay, where would we best be able to target people based on that? Or conversely, if we realize, well, we don't really have anyone from this geography, who's there? How can we tailor our outreach to the people who are in this community so that we can make sure that it's going to connect with people and be culturally appropriate? So that's how we've been working with this. It's a part of the public engagement plan. It's also a separate part of the project as well, and will be used for evaluating alternatives and options and seeing how they align with these communities. I'm happy to take questions. It's very data heavy. So I'm happy to talk about this more.
Are you able to return to the last slide?
Did you have a specific question about it, or did you?
Thank you. I wanted to look at the percentages compared to kind of what I
know it's a lot of
already
numbers on one
had.
page.
Yeah, this very helpful because, you know, I attempt to look this information up, but this is more compact. So.
And it'll be a part of the report, so you'll be able to see a lot more information about this. I will say, honestly, the biggest weakness with ALICE data is that the smallest we can get is the municipal level. It does not divide any smaller than that because of how they have to do this averaging by location. So we also are looking at other information that can be more granular as well.
So Roseanne, maybe we could talk a little bit about how this feeds into the outreach plan. So right up front, we had a question about languages, right? So as you said, we know the language is spoken, but we don't specifically know the towns or the communities where that is. So one way we deal with that is we translate the survey, right?
Right. I mean, we can see, like, if we, for example, if we're looking at one of these communities and we see that there's a large number of limited English proficiency within that community, we can dig deeper. We can go back to the data and see, okay, what languages are spoken within this geography? And the census will actually tell us that. Of course, that means that people have to respond to this census, and that we don't necessarily have the most up-to-date data. I mean, in areas that I've been working in, we're seeing, oh, well, now we have a lot of people who are speaking Ukrainian, and we haven't had a census since Ukrainian refugees have begun to arrive. So we need to be fluid and flexible in what we know from the community as well. So I'm sorry, I've forgotten who mentioned Haitian Creole, but again, that's a community that might not be captured in census data. But if you know that we need to reach a specific community in that way, we can find that out.
Right. So generally, the analysis tells us who to talk to, where, and how. But as you said, if the data is lagging a little bit, we can really use help from, folks on the committee to say what something is new, like you mentioned, the Ukrainian community. So people have specific groups or needs that they can, they want to hear about, or they think we should talk to, that please let us know directly. I think I saw a raised hand go up too. Please, Roseanne, go ahead.
I was just going to say your lived experience is really important in this because the data only gets me so far. And we want to make sure that we are being really, culturally appropriate in these areas and reaching people who need to be reached. Did somebody have a hand up?
I thought I saw a hand float up, or maybe that was just a thumbs up.
Okay. I did see a thumbs up.
Okay. All right. I see a couple more ideas from Mike Danner Miller. So we definitely are glad you're participating, Mike. Thank you. Good to see you. Anything else you want to add, Roseanne? Okay.
Nope. That was what I have.
Great.
Oh,
thanks.
Leanne.
Yeah,
Leanne
I hate to even have to ask this question, but I mean, some of the data from CDC's been removed. And there's definitely sort of the red word list. Are we having to think about those kind of impacts moving forward with this project?
Well, generally we're still focusing on the needs of the folks that are most disadvantaged in terms of mobility and safety, etc. We may not say the word equity, but what we're trying to do is make sure that everybody has, adequate, easy, safe access. So regardless of what the terminology is, we're still going to, see who's more disproportionately impacted and what we can do about that. And hopefully working with everybody, we can figure out where those folks are and what their needs are, where they need to go to. And if we do that, then we're successful. And, terminology and hot button words,
Yeah, I was thinking more of the data sets removed from the CDC, especially around gender.
Yeah. So
Roseanne.
let me just kind of say one thing really quickly. What I will say is all of these representatives that you see here, race, age, disability, all of these are also factors in propensity to use transit or active transportation. So if we are using these to talk to people, we are finding people who are most likely to use those services. So that's one side of it. Also, this is done by the United Way. It's kind of a separate, the ALICE analysis is a little bit separate. So that's kind of its own thing. And I'll kind of defer to Jen on funding and what the restrictions would be.
I guess what I was thinking of, what we're facing is, some of our data that we still have, like, social vulnerability index has gone from CDC. We still have it, but it's not going to be updated. So things like that.
Right. I mean, like the EJ analysis from USDOT, very similar. It's gone. Right. But I mean, it has been replicated by other organizations, but this is all just straight census data, still publicly available. At least the things that are on this side, and the ALICE household data is separate. That's done by the United Way, that composite score. So right now our data sources are safe. And we've been able to do this analysis as it is.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Roseanne. Back to Annie. Okay, all right, this is my part. Okay, so the next thing, so we in terms of process, we do the ALICE equity demographic work right up front. We develop our community engagement plan to figure out who to talk to, where they are, and how to talk to them. And then the other part of the analysis is a data-driven part, the existing conditions report or analysis. So what we look at is, and the mapping is still in development, so we're still kind of doing this part. We look at crash data, so we have number of years of historical crash data, figure out where the crashes are occurring and where there are disproportionate impacts to pedestrians and cyclists. We look at the base mapping to figure out where the existing bicycle network is, where trails are. We're in process of doing that. Out of the 4 counties, we've got about, I think about 80% of it mapped. So this map is sort of incomplete right now. And then when we get our existing conditions-based network map, we'll send that out to everybody to see if anybody has any comments, to see if we missed anything. The next thing, if you want to go to the next slide, is we do our literature review. It's a review of supporting plans, policy, and guidance. There are all sorts of studies of active transportation, pedestrian safety, disability safety, crash data, etc., and as well as SJTPO's various plans, their master transportation plan, and what's being done in the surrounding region, the circuit in Philadelphia, and some of the other trails that are leading up to the SJTPO region. So we look at all those studies. We try to figure out who's doing what's proposed, figure out what the existing needs are, safety needs, problems in the transportation network, gaps in that network, barriers that have to be overcome, try to find ways to address the safety issues. And we use all that information to supplement our existing base mapping and our sort of library of potential projects. So this second list down here, these are some of the things that we're going to look at. The South Jersey Trails Design Guide was completed recently. Atlantic County Bikeway West feasibility study, the Morris River Corridor study, a couple others that were done in Camden, Cumberland, and then some local plans as well. So all these things tell us who's been studying what, and so make sure we can take advantage and leverage all those things and put them into our base mapping, and as well as the candidate projects for the future. So if you want to jump to the next slide, we can look at a couple of examples. One of these is the 2017 Bike Walk Cape May study. This is very much on the local level. So we looked at what was existing right now, where people are living, where they're working, where they want to go to. We looked at bike lanes, bike boulevards, shared lanes, trails, pedestrian improvements. Again, that concept connecting people from where they live to where they need to go, where they want to go. And then the recommendations include new pedestrian facilities, new bike facilities, better crosswalks, lighting, new trail facilities, supported by speed limit reductions as well. We know very much the data tells us that safety is greatly improved when we have lower speed limits, and also when we have people actually driving with those speed limits. And then the goal is to just really regionally or locally interconnect the bike and walk network, and then make sure we have connections to the outside region. So that's a good example of one of the local studies that'll form our existing conditions and existing infrastructure mapping. And then the next one. This is the Atlantic County Bikeway feasibility study. So there are some existing rail facilities that have been developed in the South Jersey region. And in this case is a good example of the DVRPC has been working to come to the east. And what we want to do is make those connections. That's that line in the blue in the top left corner, and the line in the orange there, and all the different connections show the connections that are proposed there. So point being that there's a lot of work that's been done that we can leverage and figure out how to prioritize some of the recommendations. And a lot of these studies come with cost estimates and maintenance. I think, did anybody have a question? No? Okay. All right, and so there's a good example. So like I said, we're reviewing all these previous studies as well as checking with the towns and the counties to find out projects that are proposed and planned and already funded so that we can figure out what the real gaps are and how to fill those in the future. Mike? Yep.
Do you also have an inventory of major development applications? And thing that's coming to mind is what's cooking on the north side of Sunset Beach out by Cape May Point. There's some big scale stuff. Are people sharing that with you yet?
I'm pretty sure that we don't have that, but that's a good suggestion. And I think what we can do is maybe work with SJTPO and the counties to get that kind of information. But thanks for reminding us of that, Mike. Was there another hand up or Norm or Lorm? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Elam. Wanted to throw in Whitesboro, we recently completed a neighborhood revitalization tax credit plan for DCA, and so just let me know who to send that over to, and you'll get all the information about what's going on.
Okay, yeah, I think the best way to send it over to either John or Jennifer at SJTPO, and they can get that to us. It brings up a good point. A lot of times things can be addressed locally in land development applications and maybe more strenuous review at the municipal and the county level. So a good example is there's a lot of warehousing going up, right? And towns want these things to get improved. And what has happened in a couple places is the warehouse opens up and suddenly people are saying, hey, people are walking in the street or they're walking in the grass from the bus stop to the warehouse. That's an opportunity that's missed. When that development application comes into the county or the municipality, they need to understand that how people are getting to these workplaces and try to make sure that the developer, and you have some leverage in this land development review process. I was on my zoning board, local zoning board for quite a few years, and we were, try to be fairly aggressive with these applications and make sure that that the developer, does their fair share in making sure that sidewalks or better lighting or crosswalks are provided. Because once the thing goes in, you're kind of stuck with it and it becomes somebody else's problem. So we got to make sure that, the developers are, a good member of the community and good part of the process. Jennifer, that was Mike's comment. Okay. Thanks for bringing that up, though. That's a really good point. But that would be one of we're going to have recommendations for projects, infrastructure, but also policy recommendations, and that idea of a more stringent, if you want to say aggressive land development review process is certainly something that can be done to make sure that we're not creating new problems on top of what already exists. We don't want to create new gaps and new barriers. We want to make sure that we address them as best we can. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the next steps. So as I said, we are, we've gotten some good feedback on our community outreach events. A number of people have suggested things. Mike, I think we're going to reach out to you about the bus depot in Pleasantville. We actually worked on a Pleasantville bike plan, I could say about 8 or 10 years ago, so we have a little bit familiarity with that. We're doing our existing conditions analysis, inventory of existing facilities, assessment of conditions and safety, bicycle accommodations, and with the goal of identifying gaps in the network and barriers to safe mobility for all users. And then we'll go into our process of starting to develop the active transportation network. We're going to have 2 more meetings of this group scheduled for the spring and fall, so we'll probably come back in the early spring with a candidate draft network, and I'm sure that we'll have some mapping for you and some lists for you to review in advance of that meeting. We'll get your feedback on that draft network and the draft policies, draft strategies, and then we'll come back in the fall for the final review of the transportation plan and the report. Jennifer and John, did you want to add anything else before we close out? And we can certainly take more questions as well.
I think we had a lot of great discussion today, and this is exactly the kind of interaction that we were looking for. Because I had, mentioned at one point that despite our best efforts, we don't always hear from a lot of people. So it's great that we were able to kind of create this eclectic group with a lot of different feedback that you were able to offer. We appreciate that, and we look forward to continue to engage. I know Pete mentioned that maybe we'll talk internally this afternoon, but if you have any additional questions or groups that you think that we should reach out to, please let John and I know. John works for us part-time, and as I mentioned, I'm the executive director. So between the two of us, we'll get back to you and forward it on to the people within our consultant team that can do a little bit more research and legwork for us. So we really appreciate the conversation, and we hope that it continues.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jennifer. We set up these meetings and we invite people and we never know what we're going to get. But I got to say that we've got a lot of good suggestions and concerns and maybe constituent groups that we hadn't really thought of before. So appreciate your input. Any other team members want to add anything or any more questions from the
only thing I will say also, I know we created this project working group kind of internally. So if you're thinking that there are voices that need to be part of our smaller project working group, please send them over as well. We did had a few other people that were invited that weren't able to join us today. But again, if you're feeling like there's just a missing group, let us know and we can invite them to consider to be a member of the project working group. The idea is that this project working group kind of stays, I don't want to say small, but manageable, I'll say, and then the outreach pushing things forward, as Pete maybe said, kind of carrying the message, kind of bringing the people, being stewards to what we're trying to get information back, things of that nature. So we appreciate all of the feedback. And again, if there's other people that you think that need to be included in this group, please share them as well.
As part of the community outreach, is there going to be a session like this for community members to try to join into some type of conversation? Or are you just going to specifically target events? Like, are you going to have any Zooms or meetings that would host community members? I'm just thinking about our local CACs and TACs. So we have people that have already signed up to be a part of transportation advisory councils. And if they could be persons in the community, which would be able to you would be able to host in some of these types of meetings for additional input.
Andy, you want to jump? I'm trying to look at how many public activities we have scheduled.
Annie or Jenny?
Annie or Jenny, yeah.
Oh, okay. Jenny, I'll jump in here. Yeah, I don't think we had targeted those groups specifically, but I think that's a great idea. I think initially we had said 3 outreach sessions. I think the format location was sort of flexible. If you think it would be helpful to have maybe one of those events as like a Zoom or something that those groups could join in and kind of hear more detailed information like you all just heard, I think that's something that we can consider. Otherwise, the in-person mapping exercise that'll be in the spring will have some sort of presentation component. And then towards the end, when we share the draft study, that would also be like a public meeting. But I totally get like there's a need to get that sort of information out there up front too. So that's something that we can maybe work into our outreach sessions.
Yeah, so we have the 3 stakeholder activities, but I think we also have 1 or 2 targeted public activities. So I think we can work something in that.
Or should we also kind of make this recording available after on our YouTube channel, post it on our website? We haven't developed a like a specific page for this effort. But we can share it that way. So even if they're not able to participate in it directly, they can still get the same information. And certainly those are type of groups that we would encourage you to share the survey once that's live to get their additional feedback that way as well.
I see Deb Kagan and I think Leanne also have their hands up.
Yeah, we haven't really talked, or I haven't heard as part of the plan to reach out to local government or local elected officials. But that has been something that's also been helpful for us in getting the word out. So their town council meetings, their ward meetings, there's, town website, they can be putting out the survey. So I would encourage you to reach out to them, let them know, ask them to use their networks to get the word out. And I don't know if you've had electeds that are have come forward as champions, but that's a good way to find out who wants to be more active in supporting this effort.
Sure, thanks. Leanne?
And maybe I missed it. I know this is somewhat in the Alice data, but also I think it's important. My understanding of the demographics of SJTPO area is you have a much higher level of people aging and needing to age in place, and kind of along with that, a higher level of people with ambulatory disabilities. And so making sure like the county health aging services are part of this might be really helpful.
I think, Leanne, I don't think you were there when we initially started, but that is instead of having our technical advisory committee members, which is the county planners, the engineers that we typically deal with, this people from the counties that we reach out to were the county of office and aging and things of that nature.
That's exactly
so they
what I
are
was getting at.
represented. Thank you, Leanne.
Yeah, no, I support that. That's great. I think that those are the folks who know the region, needs and where there's pockets of particular need as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Anyone else? Or I think we can. I think we're pretty close to our 90-minute goal. So really appreciate everybody participating. Like I said, we never know what's going to happen, but I think we got a really good diversity of comments and things that we knew about, and a lot of things that we didn't. And we'll be reaching out to you, some of you, hopefully pretty quick, to help us with some of our events, and then we'll. Jennifer, maybe you want to just mention what the resources you have. You're going to have on your website, right, on the SJTPO website, a landing page with probably a link to the survey and some other information. Do you want to just mention that? So
yeah,
people
to
are aware
be
of that?
determined and has not been developed as of
Yeah.
yet. So
Okay.
we'll definitely
Right.
work on getting that.
Great.
The project team.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I think if the project team want to hang on real quick, John and Jennifer, we can talk about some of the activities that we can do. And like I said, for example, Mike, we'll be reaching out to you. I think this bus depot idea is really a nice suggestion. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for everybody for joining. Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for the feedback, guys.
Okay. Whew. I gotta apologize. I was typing something at 9:59 and I wasn't looking at the clock. So, but I think we
Sorry, can we
worked that okay.
stop? Can we stop the
Oh
recording?
yeah. Recording. Who's doing?
We can probably cut it too, Roseanne, but good idea.